Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Our topic for today is going to be an introduction to the subjunctive mood. So hold on tight because we are getting into a completely different mood. We are going to introduce the subjunctive with impersonal expressions. So let's get started. Si se puede. Okay. All right. What is an impersonal expression? And do they have a subject? Let's see. All right, so impersonal expressions are expressions that, or phrases, that do not have a specific subject when talking about an action taking place. All right, oftentimes we use these phrases when we're giving like advice or just talking in generalities. So, I want you to take a moment and list 3 examples of impersonal expressions that we've come across so far, or something that you've created. So I want you to write down 3 personal expressions or 3 sentences using impersonal expressions. So go ahead and hit pause and write your examples down. All right, let me share with you 3 examples that I put together. Es importante reciclar los papeles, es malo tirar la basura en el suelo, es responsable usar recursos renovables. All right, so those are 3 examples of impersonal expressions. Please remember that there are no subjects specifying who is doing the action. Therefore, we use the infinitive that follows. And please make note, we haven't really talked about this much, but you can use any third-person singular form of ser. So you can fue, era, será. Any of those can be used with impersonal expressions. All right, so here's a list that we're going to be focusing on for this lesson for impersonal expressions. Es necesario que, es mejor que, es importante que, es bueno que, es malo que, es increíble que, es una lástima que, es raro que, es imprescindible que, and es interesante que. And you should be comfortable with the majority of those. If there are any that you want to make sure that you know what they mean in English, please make sure you make note of those and then comment and ask once we get into class. Notice that any adjective essentially can be turned into an impersonal expression. Es triste que, you get the idea. All right, so and now we're going to move into the subjunctive. So I'm going to show you an example of a subjunctive sentence, or a couple examples actually. And I want you to record your thoughts on your notes. So this is really important for you to really just take a minute and hit pause if you need to and soak in these sentences and write down what you notice. Okay, so you've got a list or a little box that asks for your observations. So here we go. Es bueno que ustedes reciclen las latas de refrescos. Take a look at that sentence closely. Think about what it means. Jot down any ideas that you have. Here's another example of a sentence using the subjunctive. Es importante que la gente del mundo ayude el medio ambiente. What do you think? And then finally, es malo que los negocios amanecen el medio ambiente. Interesante. All right. So, here's some things that I would like for you to take into account. And I want you to write these on that other box. So, did you notice that we've got impersonal expressions? Are those es bueno, es importante, es malo? All right. And then notice we've got, each one has the word que. It appears in all of them. Notice there's a subject change in the second clause. Es bueno que ustedes. Es importante que la gente. Es malo que los negocios. And then finally, in the clause after the word que, the verb has the the verb has the opposite ending. We know that reciclar is an AR verb. We know that ayudar is also an AR verb. So then how do we form a sentence using the subjunctive, right? And the subjunctive mood, actually, you know what? I'll get there in a second. So let's take a look at another sentence. All right, and we're going to break it down now. All right. So we've got an impersonal expression, which is essentially our first subject. In this case, our subject is general. It's ambiguous. Okay? And then we have to have the word K. And then the clause with the second subject. Okay? So we're going to jump into English class for just a second. I apologize, but I think this will help you out kind of in the long run in the big scheme of things. All right. You've talked about clauses, hopefully, right, in your English class. So you've got dependent and independent clauses. What is a dependent clause? We might want to jot that down somewhere on your notes. What's a dependent clause? I think you have a little bubble. Tell me what a dependent clause is. In this case, our impersonal expression is the dependent clause, right? And then we've got our second part of our sentence is the independent clause, and we use our new subjunctive, that tense, that should really say mood, we are learning. All right. Our independent clause, our dependent clause, I apologize. Our dependent clause uses what we call the indicative mood, which is what we've been talking about since Spanish 1. So the indicative mood indicates the present tense, the preterite tense, the imperfect, the future, and the conditional. So those all are what we call the indicative mood. But we also have a different mood called the subjunctive. And right now we're just working with the present subjunctive. So this is how we're forming the present subjunctive, and we're going to learn how to form that here in your next slide. Okay. Again, I'll go into a little bit more detail about what the subjunctive actually is in your notes in class. All right. So here's some example sentences using the subjunctive with impersonal expressions. Es bueno que ustedes reciclen las latas. Es importante que la gente... Oh, these are the same sentences, but notice I just broke it down color-coded. If you're a color-coded person, that would be great to add. All right. Remember, in order for us to use the subjunctive, we have to have essentially two subjects. There has to be a subject change. Again, with our impersonal expressions in this case, it's ambiguous as to who our subject is. All right. So then how do we form the subjunctive conjugations? Well, first of all, you're going to start in the yo form and drop the o. And then for our AR verbs, you're going to add the opposite ending. Notice you've got the yo form and the la and usted form are the same. You've got an accent on the vosotros form. So what do you think the er and ir endings are going to be? I'll tell you, they're grouped together again. Ah, very good. You've got the opposite ending, which is for our AR verb. So as, amos, as, an. You get the idea. So that's how we form the subjunctive conjugations. Then we're going to talk about irregulars and all that stuff in class later. All right. So do these conjugations look familiar? Have you seen these before? No uses este tono conmigo, jovencito. Manda mis emails. Llámame a casa de mi amigo. Muéstrame las noticias. Manda esta foto. Okay? Have you seen these before? Yes, these are examples of commands. So our subjunctive mood has the same formation as our commands. So they're not used the same, but the words themselves are the same. Does that make sense? Again, if you have any questions, please make sure that you jot those down. All right. So to finish up today, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do a little bit of practice. I'm going to give you 4 sentences, and I would like for you to translate that sentence into English. Now, these sentences are a little bit longer because obviously our sentences are going to be a little bit longer, but I really want you to take time and hit pause and work through those sentences. Okay, so I'm going to give them all to you now, I think. Yeah, I am. And then I am going to push pause, and then we'll go over the answers here shortly. Okay? You got this. Okay. Let's see how you did. Our first one, es interesante que OSHS tenga un programa grande de reciclaje. Notice we're using tenga because we start in the yo form. Draw a blank there. It's important that we support the program. Es importante que nosotros apoyemos o fomentemos el programa. Excuse me. Es malo que las personas tiren el papel y el plástico en el basurero. And then finally, it's fun that my family travels a lot. Es divertido que mi familia viaje mucho. So those are some examples. We're going to work with this quite a bit. Please make sure that you jot down any questions that you have, and I look forward to going over this in class. Thanks, guys.